Welcome to 2023. About a month ago, I posted this video, Crazy VR Issues with my Z6ii, and it's taken me a month to take so many photos. If you haven't watched the video, I'll put a link up here now. Watch this video. This is a sample of the issues that I was dealing with my Nikon Z6ii. I think I found the issue, but the answer is not as you might think. And I really would like to thank everybody who has commented on this video, both on YouTube and on Facebook. I really appreciate all the comments. And some of them led me down a path where I think like, oh, this could be right. And in trying that method, nope, I couldn't replicate it. Now, over the last month for this video, I took over 1,500 photos. I started just at home in my backyard, photographing a power pole. You might think like, well, power pole's not a bird. How can you replicate? Well, a lot of the problems seem to be in straight lines. So I think like, okay, well, power pole, it's got power lines running through it. I'm going to see if that distortion happens there. No, couldn't replicate there. So I asked Trevor the Heron, Trevor, can you help me to see if we can replicate this? And if you don't know who Trevor is, here's a picture of Trevor. We couldn't replicate it. And Trevor was scratching his head, I was scratching my head. So I said, okay, let's go back to the place where I was getting all these areas, Black Duck Lagoon. I went back there about a week ago and I took over 1,000 photos in the same modes that I took the day that these areas were happening. And here is a sample of the 5 modes and the settings that I used. So the first one here, I'm in wide area AF small using mechanical shutter without silent photography. So on the Z6ii, you can choose auto shutter. So the camera chooses whether to use the mechanical shutter or the electronic front curtain. If you're not in silent photography, you're really not going to know the difference unless you go over 0.02 of a second where the electronic shutter will be locked out. If you're using a shutter speed higher than 0.02 seconds, you're automatically in mechanical shutter. Now, the only time that I really saw this was when I was in continuous high extended, meaning 14 frames per second. And this is what it sounds like. So I said, all right, cool, set the camera up like this. This first one here, wide area AF small, mechanical shutter without silent photography, so I can hear the shutter going off. 48 photos, 14 frames per second, 1/1600th of a second. Did you see the log move? I didn't. The last time the log moved. Did you see any problems with it? No, it was just normal, how it's supposed to be. This next one here, dynamic area AF, because these were the only 2 modes that I used on that day. I used dynamic area AF or wide area small, which are my 2 preferred modes. Mechanical shutter plus silent photography. When you're using silent photography, you don't hear the shutter button. What's the sound of silent photography? That's going 14 frames per second here. That's the beauty of silent photography. I like using silent photography now because I don't spook the birds, especially if I'm very quiet area. So I go like, okay, we'll put in silent photography because I was getting errors in silent photography. And this is what some people were saying, well, maybe it's silent photography that's the issue. Let's take a look at the photos here. 49 photos, 14 frames per second, 2.5 of a second. Did you see anything wrong? It looked like the tree was moving, but there was quite a bit of wind that day. The breeze was just moving around a little bit and I was holding the camera, so that's what you saw, just that little movement. But still no errors. And I'm thinking like, I have to try to replicate this so I can give you people the answer, how not to get the errors that I was getting. Number 3, wide area AF small, electronic shutter plus silent photography. because this is where I was getting the biggest errors. Now remember, if you're in electronic shutter, you can't go above 0.02 of a second. The camera just locks up. It will not let you go above 0.02 of a second, no matter what you do. 50 photos, 14 frames per second, 1/1600th of a second. So I'm just moving very slowly from left to right, because on the day that I went out to Black Duck Lagoon photographing the birds, this cone-crested jacana was moving around. So I was tracking it, and all the foreground, this log there, it was just zigzagging away. So I said, okay, well, let's try to see if I'm just moving a bit, if I'm going to replicate. I tried, you saw, nothing. Now I'm really getting desperate. I'm thinking like, what am I going to say? Am I just going to give up and say, well, I give up. I don't know what caused it. Here's two more to show you that I tried everything. This one here, dynamic area AF, electronic shutter, plus silent photography again. I was photographing this little willy wagtail feeding one of its fledgling. Sometimes when you go out to do these, you just get the amazing photos, and I'm so glad I got these. 50 photos, 14 frames a second, 1/1600th of a second. Now a couple of photos were out of focus, but you saw I was trying to track these birds quite well. Remember, with the Z6ii at 14 frames per second, it happens really quickly and you get like a blackout because you're just seeing the photo that you just took like for a millisecond. So it's a bit hard to track the birds. And I zoomed in quite a bit to try to get as much of the bird possible. Still no error. This is the last one. Wide area AF in silent mode with mechanical shutter, because I'm shooting at 3,200th of a second. 50 photos just of this little wagtail sitting there at 14 frames per second. Now you're probably thinking like, come on Charles, you got to tell us, have you fixed the issue? Do you know the issue? Well, I'm 99% sure that I fixed the issue. And what's the issue? Well, I'm pretty sure it's me. I am the reason that this happened, because it only happened twice. If you watch my videos, you will notice that I get to shake sometimes. Some days is worse than others. It doesn't really bother me. That's just a part of me. Now, on the 2 times that this has happened, I realized later that I did have the shakes pretty bad. And you might think, so what does that have to do with taking photos? Well, we always hold our cameras like this. I'm up here, even though I shoot 90% of the time with the tripod, and the Nikon 200-500 is tripod aware. It shouldn't have done that. But I think that sometimes, because I wasn't holding the camera that firmly, I was just slightly touching it and having the shakes, that I caused the camera to shake. The VR just got confused. And this is where I think that it happened. I realized this only a few days after I went out to take all these photos. I am 99% sure that this was the reason that I got the camera to do this crazy VR issue. There was nothing wrong with the Z6ii. There was nothing wrong with my lens, because I'd used silent photography quite a bit before. I'd used the electronic shutter and I didn't have a problem. So this is what I'm basing myself down to. And now I will be very careful when I take photos to firmly hold the lens when I'm taking photos, especially when I've got the bad shakes. I hope this helped you out. I hope you can see now there is a bright side to it, that there was nothing wrong with my camera, nothing wrong with my lens. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a big thumbs up. Stay safe, enjoy your wildlife photography in 2023, and I'll see you soon.